Well, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be moderating this panel on middle powers in the New World Order. This is panel 5. We have 75 minutes together, 9 speakers, and a keynote speaker that I'm sure you will enjoy. I have the privilege to give the floor to Minister Georg Georgiev, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Bulgaria. Minister, your country has a long history in diplomacy. As a NATO member, as a European Union member, you know what it's like to be a middle power and what is the role that middle powers play in world geopolitics, especially in the world of today, where we are living a very dynamic, multipolar world. I would just not make any introductory comments because I know, Minister, you have to leave. You have a meeting in very few minutes. So without further ado, I have the privilege to give you the floor for a 10-minute keynote speech, and then I will call to the podium the speakers for the next panel. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, dear participants, dear heads of state, dear representatives of governments, dear friends. Allow me to begin by expressing my gratitude to our Azerbaijani hosts and the organizers from the Nizami Ganjavi International Center for the kind invitation to participate in the 12th edition of the Baku Global Forum and for the opportunity to speak in front of such a highly respected audience. Ladies and gentlemen, our world faces geopolitical turbulences. Never before in the post-World War II world have we had full-scale war in Europe, a proliferation of military conflicts, a fragile global economy, a planet that is warming up very fast, an accelerating loss of nature and biodiversity, a technological paradigm shift in the shape of the AI, and open up enormous new opportunities, but worries also, many across the world, deepening social inequalities, and last but not least, an indiscriminately fractured political space. Without a doubt, the most devastating challenges that we must address today are the war conflicts around the globe and the drastic geopolitical changes stemming from them that threaten the global security architecture and the international rules-based order, which has served the global community well over 8 decades of peace and prosperity. Finding negotiated solutions to the conflicts around us, starting with the war against Ukraine, is a paramount imperative. It is the crucial for global security and stability. Bulgaria has always stood up in support of multilateralism. This forum is another good occasion in reconfirming our consistent position in support of strengthening the multilateral approach in solving global issues. We have always adhered to the UN Charter and the principles and norms of international law. The one country, one vote principle for our state has a deep and fair meaning, especially in today's uncertain and rapidly changing world. Getting back to might makes the right is not an option for the middle powers, so let alone for those who are further down in terms of political and economic clout. As a new member state, Bulgaria has voted to defend the common values and principles on which the European Union is founded. Peace, prosperity, human dignity, based on democracy, good governance, rule of law, respect for human rights, and commitment to dialogue and cooperation are values that often label us as Europeans or Western, but isn't that they are truly universal? There is hardly anybody among us today that would argue against these principles which have been inscribed in the UN Charter itself. In a world more and more focused on interests, it's important to remember that values do matter. They matter for all, for the big, also for the small. They're the compass that allows us to navigate the complex terrain of the international relations in a truly interdependent world. So, an enduring partnership based on commonality of values shared by humanity has been the transatlantic partnership between the EU and the United States, for example. This strategic partnership that has defined the world's peace, stability, and prosperity since the end of the World War II is as needed as ever today. Europe and the European Union must continue to engage constructively and strategically with the United States administration. This is a political necessity if and when we are to achieve what we hope, a common goal for all of us today, a comprehensive, just, and lasting peace in Ukraine, in line with the principles of the UN Charter and the international law. In this regard, I'm confident that the solution for common challenges that we are facing could be found in building a new multipolar global order through a reformed, inclusive, and network multilateralism. Dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, the European project is a project of peace and prosperity, a project that upholds stability, values sustainability, and protects equality in all partnerships that the Union engages in. The EU is a leading force behind ambitious policies such as the energy diversification and connectivity, in which we highly evaluate in the role of our hosts from Azerbaijan. Bulgaria is an active supporter and participant in the consistent efforts to achieve the much-needed transition to green energy. In future, in which energy will be over greater demand, we must make sure our energy supplies are sustainable, affordable, and climate-friendly. Dear guests, to conclude with this is how I see the road ahead for the world's middle powers, whole prospects we have gathered to discuss in this distinguished panel. I believe that middle powers have a mission to play in an increasingly important role in international relations, shaping a new multilateralism to help solve global challenges. I would like to conclude by recalling the mission of the Nizami Ganjavi International Center to build dialogue and understanding between cultures and peoples for and helping them sustain successful inclusive societies led by the values of humanity we are all sharing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minister. It was, I cannot think of a better way to frame the conversation that we are about to have. And basically your message was we need to go back to the basics. We need a value-based multilateral system, and we need partnerships. So how do you see the role of middle powers, countries like your own, in rethinking the multilateral system that you basically were saying it is vital, it's more needed than ever. But of course, we also agree that the multilateral system needs retooling, that the United Nations needs a profound refurbishing. So how do you see the roadmap? I know that yesterday there were conversations about the Pact of the Future, about delivering in an action-oriented reform process. How do you envisage, and not only envisage the much-needed reform, but the role of countries like your own?
Thank you. I'm speaking about values and ideals just because that's the basis, that's the very milestone, the cornerstone of everything which we're doing. And I'm very afraid that now the world is stepping back from on what exactly kind of civilization it was built. And that's the leading role of our governments, of us as political representatives of the society to navigate in this very stormy sea of today's world. But when speaking about the role of the little and medium-sized countries, I probably can't give a better example than NATO, let's say, in which you can't take a decision even without the vote of a single country. So a single country, doesn't depending on its size, can actually reshape a decision of the whole alliance. And when we speak multilateralism, I think that the smaller and medium-sized countries, we do not have any other choice but to rely on the multilateral formats in which we can actually participate in forming majorities. Because The other option is only having bigger countries, bigger stakeholders, which do, you know, demand on their decisions by the might of size, which is not the point, because we do have our interests, we do have our point of view, and we do have our contribution to the common resolvement and challenges which we are sharing. And I can say it in the context of, for example, the Central and Eastern Europe or the Balkan Peninsula, where my country belongs. We do know, and we have a lot of experience, for example, when it comes to the war in Ukraine, when it comes to the knowledge of how exactly the relationship with the Russian Federation has been developing in the past. So even that we are smaller, medium-sized countries, we do have our contribution in this very particular case in which we can seek for sustainable and lasting peace in Ukraine, and how exactly to achieve it, and how exactly to guarantee the security of the whole continent, and in this regard, the world as well. So I think that the middle and medium-sized countries should not be underestimated, because we do have our expertise, we do have our view upon the processes, not only, but we have the historical knowledge of how exactly the relationship in our part of the world has been developing and how they're developing now. So that's why I'm saying that we need to combine values with reality, with objectivism, and meeting all of this together, we can actually fulfilling our goals. And our goals should be based on this which I'm seeing here in this very hall. And this is our struggle for stability, for prosperity, for actually having a world in which peace is leading. Unfortunately, it's not the case, but we are seeing the first steps of this in many years. And I'm very optimistic that now we have the best window of opportunity in which all of us, doesn't depend on how big we are in measures, but how actually dedicated to these common values we are in executing this bigger perspective of being secure and stable and peaceful.
Thank you very much. We hear you. It's not about square kilometers. It is about good diplomacy. It is about experience. It is about political will and commitment with the values of the multilateral system. It is about expertise to building bridges, to broker dialogue. And indeed, in this very volatile, multipolar world, we do need these brokers, these middle powers to act and operate internationally in the defense of multilateralism and the rule of law. So thank you, Minister Georg Georgiev. We understand we have a very important meeting to attend, so we will release you, but it has been a privilege to have you here. To have you being a loud voice at the Baku Forum. So thank you very, very much.